Welcome to It Takes a Village, presented by Assalone Lombardi, a firm that champions a holistic approach to divorce. Join us as we explore how guidance from the right third-party experts can transform a challenging life event into a journey of empowerment.
Hello, welcome to It Takes a Village, presented by Assalone and Lombardi. I am Victoria Lombardi, the Lombardi half of Assalone and Lombardi, and my co-host, Veronica Assalone, is present here today. We are so excited about today's episode because we are talking about something that is so near and dear to the hearts of all divorce attorneys and something that creates a lot of questions in our clients, which is mediation. So joining us today, we have two mediators extraordinaire, Jane McAuliffe, who is a certified divorce financial analyst, and attorney Kerry Rafanelli, who has more practice than I have years of life and has become one of the premium mediators in our state. So welcome, Kerry and Jane. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we want to jump right into it, and we want to kind of get right into these frequently asked questions that we see all the time about mediation and what it means in divorce. And I think you guys can agree with me that the number one question is, what is mediation and how does it work? So can you guys give us some insight to that?
Yeah, we have a little bit of a unique process. We co-mediate together. So we both address and assist clients with navigating both the financial side of divorce and mediation and also the legal side. So as the financial component of the group, I work as a neutral between the parties to help gather documents, create transparency, make sure that everybody's on the same page and have access to the same information at the same time, all while helping them do some budgeting, cash flow analysis, and also look at the overall division of the assets and liabilities as they're discussing things.
Beautiful.
From my perspective, I bring to it the legal face of the process. I explain to parties that although I'm an attorney, I'm not the attorney for the husband or the wife, one spouse or the other, the mother or the father, but I'm an attorney that serves as an information booth as to the legal aspects of custody, placement, support, visitation, equitable distribution of assets, and alimony. So we make clear that we are not representing either party, but we are neutral based, all with the goal of bringing the two parties together to create their own amicable agreement.
So it sounds like you guys are dancing around, I think, what we're getting at for a lot of people. And they're saying, but how is mediation different than what I go to court? They're picturing like a suits mentality, right? Where there's two lawyers standing at the table pounding fists. The environment that you create using your expertise, how is that different from that in mediation? And how can that be leveraged for clients?
Well, I think from a time perspective, you're coming to a conference room in our office, which is far more comfortable than sitting in the court corridors of any of the many counties of Providence, waiting for your attorney, seeing your spouse at the other end of the hall, more of a chilling environment, not speaking with each other. And we gather the two people in the same environment at the same time with the same amount of power in the room so that they know that no one has a greater voice than the other. They have to self-advocate in the mediation process, but they're coming here speaking them for themselves and asking for what they're desiring to have accomplished in the divorce.
So it's really a forum that these folks can sit down together one-on-one and try to come up with some resolutions around their assets and their children without lawyers, without judges. Does that sound about
Yeah.
right?
I mean, our goal is to save them costs from every angle, right? Emotional cost of a divorce. When someone is in a litigated situation, their divorce could last minimum 6 months to maybe even 2+ years. You know, we've all seen the highly contested cases that can drag on and on. We also want to save the money, right? You know, the cost of a litigated case in a trial can run into the tens, if not hundreds of thousands. And we also want to save them time. So we don't want their case to languish for a year. We don't want their case to go on for 2 years. And, you know, our goal is to get them to a resolution with the least amount of money, emotional fallout, and, you know, time overall. We do that in a methodical way. So we do that we follow the same steps, or I do anyway, from the financial side, as a litigated case would do. I ask for all documents up front. I have them start to work on their budgets up front. So we're ready to hit the ground running. We've got all the same information. A neutral third party is reviewing statements, verifying and for accuracy, making sure that everybody's got all the information that they need. It creates sort of a harmony of, the clients feel assured that there's one party making sure that everything is what it is, right? And if there's a question about anything, then I'm able to dig a little bit deeper and ask for those documents that we can get to, get some answers on. But from there, we hit the ground running once we've got everything.
I want to loop Veronica in on this. Veronica, how, in your perspective, in your experience, is this process so much more valuable to clients, not only to help reach a resolution, but to get them to it faster and less expensively?
Well, I would resonate what Jane just said, in that if you go into a divorce with the intention of saving fiscal costs, saving emotional costs, saving time, coming to a mutual agreement that expeditiously, that is satisfactory to both parties, there's nothing better, in my opinion, in Rhode Island than meeting with Jane and Kerry to attempt to do that, rather than go down the rabbit hole of a contested divorce where if your intention is, sure, to spend a boatload of money, to be in court for 2 years, to sort of not be able to trust, perhaps, or test the messages that are being given to you with people who may have an alternate agenda. But if the two of you, if two parties approach mediation with the same intention of saving money, time, and cost, and emerging as two people who can raise their children together and not be financially exhausted and emotionally exhausted, mediation is 100% the way to go, no matter what case it is. And while we handle a lot of contentious litigation, we find ourselves more and more saying, wait a minute, stop, you really don't need us, or could you please consider doing this a different way, and making an effort to see if you could resolve this a different way with Jane and Kerry, which we know is in the best interest of almost every client who comes to us.
And so you guys talk about this concept of resolving the cases. And we know, as the lawyers and the professionals in the room, there's a lot of different ways to resolve cases. But when we have, folks that are coming into this, I think for them, they look at it and say, okay, what is court conflict resolution? What is mediation conflict resolution? And what is arbitration conflict resolution? So, Veronica and Kerry, how do those three elements work? How do they work with each other? And why, out of those three, do we think that mediation is the best, and why we're all here today talking about it?
Well, to me, mediation, I try to describe it to parties that you're still going to go through the same issues and the same approaches as you would as if you went to court. Everyone wants to know how long things are going to take, how much are they going to cost, and how am I going to make out at the other end. And so I look at mediation as opposed to arbitration, where there's another decision maker, or litigation where there's a judge that makes a decision. As in mediation, the two parties are making their own decision. They're working together to get to the best possible resolution. Is it everything everyone wants? Absolutely not. Does one person think the child support's too low? Yes. Does the other one think it's too high? Yes. And we go through many different calculations on different scenarios, accommodate everybody's request. She should have 2 jobs. He should have 3 jobs. Everyone's got some request to accommodate their own situation. But I think if people see that you work with the numbers right in front of them, you accommodate both of their fact patterns and their requests, and you come to a middle ground resolution, that's exactly what's going to happen in court 7, 8, 9 months later. Whereas in mediation, generally speaking, we can get that process done in the 8 to 12 weeks that they're waiting for their first nominal court date. I think everyone thinks that everything happens quickly. It happens as quickly as they enable themselves to do it. So you can do a mediation in 4 to 8 weeks successfully, unless there's complicated assets that have to be appraised. But that same scenario in court would take 8 to 12 months at least.
At least.
Sometimes people come in anchored into a certain, position, right? They don't want to move off their position and they come into mediation, but then we, as the neutrals, start to do reality testing with them. And we start to talk about why they're asking for what they're asking for. We start to they actually hear their spouse's opinion on why they're asking for what they're asking for. And sometimes that softens people a little bit to be open to other possibilities. And we've seen that definitely in our cases where we might have a very contentious case, but they may be stuck on one issue, but we're talking about a global settlement agreement. So we're able to talk about the one issue that one person might be anchored in, but then wrap that into more of a global settlement agreement. And then people start to shift their perspective and start to think openly about, maybe we could do that. If you want that, then maybe I really want that. And so and you're talking about it in the span of 1 to 2 hours. So you're getting information in real time. And again, we're reality testing those situations with them about, okay, that might be great today, but what does that look like in 5, 10, 15 years from now? So it gets people to really step out of the emotional side of things. And then we're giving them a reality dose of, if this is what you're asking for, this is actually how it's going to affect you today and in the long term.
I mean, I think it's good for people to know you don't get everything that you want. I mean, as a litigator and a mediator, it's simply amazing that going to court will absolutely prove you don't get everything you want. In a mediation, you can accomplish as much as you both need and you both want. When you have children, it's a long road. It's from 0 to 18 raising those children. So you could litigate for a year, but you still might have 15 more years of raising those children together. In mediation,
Kerry, it sounds like you're going to start singing to us that you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find
please.
you get what you need.
You're told by Jane and I that that's probably not going to fly at court. So we might want to come to a better consensus now here. So if it's all about winning and losing at court and mediation, you can, as Jane said, soften it, negotiate it, and come to a joint resolution that's best for mother, father, and children, husband, wife, whether married or not. I mean, whether they have children or not, you can come to a better resolution than what you feel has been served up to you by a judge's decision.
So I would just add to that, plainly put, it gives the parties so much more of an opportunity to have control over the two things they have to do in a divorce, or one thing they have to do in a divorce. One is divide their assets and their debt, and the other is what are they going to do with their children? And in court, as Kerry said, it's going to be decided by a judge. So there's so much value in two of the life's most important things, your money and your kids, to be able to together come up with a way to control what happens to those things in a divorce. I also wanted to say, with respect to cost, we haven't really talked about what is a cost difference, that in our experience, having done this for decades, an average contested divorce is nowhere short of $25,000 to $50,000. We have divorces now that are well over $100,000, $200,000 in terms of cost of litigation and time going into year 2.
And versus that's just one side, right, Veronica? That's just one side of the equation.
Yeah. Versus, and that's all money that could go to their children, and to their future. And as it relates to a cost of a mediation, it's a retainer to you and Jane. And then, just to highlight the difference, instead of $100,000 divorce, we do those divorces which are uncontested for $2,500, and filing and counseling filing and constable cost, service cost. I think it's something really enormous for people to consider. I also wanted to mention that even if mediation is not successful, like you mentioned, Jane, it softens the issues and it oftentimes can limit the issues. So maybe folks come to you and they can resolve the money, but not the kids. But even if they do that, they have shortened the time that they're going to spend in court. They've mitigated their attorney's fees. So, Victoria and I could not be bigger proponents of a better way to do things.
Thank you. Yeah. And we, again, sometimes people have an idea of what they will not settle for less than anything than this, right? But then we come in and again, we give kind of creative settlements where, again, we don't have any attachment to their stuff. We don't have any, attachment to their past. We don't have any, we have no attachments to that. So we can be their kind of analytical, unbiased, non-emotional brains to say, what if this was a possibility? So we do help them with creative settlement offers, right? Something that they might not have considered before and that they couldn't verbalize, or maybe them and their attorney might have gotten stuck on along the way. Like, nope, we're not doing anything less than this. But as we start to talk about it.
And you guys do not profit in a way that contested attorneys profit for a longer fight and a harder battle. So you don't, because you're neutral parties, it doesn't behoove you to have a longer fight, a more acrimonious fight, and a more expensive battle because you're not profiting off of that. So it's something that people can really trust, that you sort of have their best interest in resolving things quickly. That doesn't happen again in a contested divorce situation.
Our fees to start are anywhere between $7,500 and $10,000. If it runs longer than that, obviously we bill by the hour. But realistically, a party could come through mediation successfully, hire an attorney. Right? We didn't talk about that yet, but we can talk about having an attorney on the outside for biased, advocacy for each client. But realistically, two parties could come in and, both have successful outcomes with attorneys for less than 15 grand. And that's very realistic.
Which is a fraction of the cost for contested litigation, and the emotional cost and the time cost.
Yeah.
And Kerry, you've mentioned in the past, and it's another point to make, we also see statistically that mediated divorces are not divorces that return to court for misunderstandings or because they felt they were treated unfairly, or they're back because they haven't covered something. The product at the end is very comprehensive. It's based on your decades of experience, and we really see, because there's a whole other practice that we have as family court attorneys, and that is the post-divorce litigation that we do. But you don't see
that
a lot of
oftentimes happens with children, because unless your children are 17 or 18, you have years in front of you. If you go to court and litigate one particular issue, you may have felt like you prevailed for that day, but there'll be another day. The losing team always comes back the next year to try and be victorious in some manner, if you're full of acrimony and venom. As opposed to mediation, we literally sit down and map out a plan for school vacations, summer vacations, major holidays, special events, weekends, weekdays. You take the year, you divide it as equitably as possible, whether one parent can do more than the other in terms of possession time, or you work on sharing possession. But it's all there. It's all been thought out. It's ridiculous. Sometimes people think of worrying about Christmas Eve and Christmas Day right now. It comes every year. And some people go back every year to court, and every year they pay another retainer to attorneys. So in mediation, you're writing your agreement. If you put it in the top drawer in your kitchen and never use it again, then great. You know what you worked out. If you have to rely upon it once a year, then you know it worked out. But I find that mediated agreements, especially as to custody, placement, support of children, those stick. They stay in effect. People follow them because they sat in that room for that period of time and they came to consensus on it. People don't usually change their minds about that later on. Whereas people that litigate, they do, because as I said, if someone feels like they didn't get everything they wanted from a judge's ruling, they're going to want to come back.
Well, and that's the question of the buy-in, right? Like, so if somebody helps to craft their own agreement, their own deal, it may not be everything they wanted, but they had a say in it, rather than it being dictated down to them that you shall do this, this, and this, whether you like it or not.
Right.
I will
and
say,
how often? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, maybe it's Kerry's guardian ad litem background, but we have had cases like that where people are sort of having trouble giving up visitation to their, to their spouse. And Kerry does a great job just talking to them like, you guys need to do this for your kids, and it's part therapy session sometimes that he's talking to these parties as if he's their family therapist, and talking to them about the longer term effects and his experience in that department, and seeing, just the horrible outcomes with kids who have permanent, damage from highly litigated cases.
No,
Sure.
but Jane, you bring up such a beautiful point of this dual role of serving with his legal background and giving that reality testing, but then having to serve the emotional needs of the party. And, you yourself, I've seen it in cases that, we've mediated together and you've mediated for me, that you may be a financial analyst, but oftentimes you're analyzing the emotions in the room just as heavily, and you're being very empathetic towards those and helping to have people understand them, but then still get to where they need to go. How is that different from a court situation or a judge situation? I mean, how
Yeah.
often are the judges incredibly empathetic with folks?
Yeah. I mean, my goal is usually there's always an imbalance with financial duties within a marriage. And maybe it's partly why they're headed toward divorce, right? Someone maintains all the control, the other person doesn't. One person makes the money, one person is underemployed or has stayed home with their kids, and one person just doesn't care and the other one does. So, balancing that with a mixture of, education, helping them to understand and grasp and gain control, and just drips of knowledge so that they feel like, okay, I have an understanding now of what's at stake. I understand what I'm going to have today. I understand when my support's going to end, what's going to happen. I understand that, in X amount of time, I need to start saving for my retirement or get a higher paying job. So how am I going to get there? People are just more equipped with the knowledge and the information so that they can make really good decisions about their future and being financially independent and self-supporting. And so that's my goal. Really, the root of it is education and getting people engaged in their financial lives, because this is a huge financial transaction. And there's lots of intricacies today, as we know, with real estate and all the things that are going on in the world just in general. People maybe have had an avoidant relationship with finances where they don't want to get involved, they don't want to face it. But once they do, I have to say, although maybe scary at first for some folks, once they can wrap their head around it and they have an understanding of it and they know that they need to pay attention, they follow through. And that's the exciting part about my job, is I get to see that transformation, and it's clear. Like, people come in scared, they walk out, and it may not be the rosiest picture, but they know what they need to do. They have a plan, and that's empowering. It's very empowering for people.
And that's why I think this particular show is so important today, is what sets both of you apart compared to other mediators or having a traditional divorce experience. The collective knowledge and experience that the two of you have, nobody can offer that. I mean, Kerry's got 40 years of family law practice experience and guardian ad litem experience, where he has been appointed countless times to make recommendations to courts about what's in the best interest of children. Jane, you have so many letters after your name regarding your certifications, and you have specific, divorces use a lot of financial advice, but you have specific training for divorcing parties. There's nothing else like you guys as a team, and just want to acknowledge that for clients. One thing we didn't touch upon is the frequently asked question or misunderstanding is, if you go through mediation, do you still need a lawyer, and do you still need to go to court? So what do you have to say about that, Kerry?
The answer is yes. Kerry Rafanelli, the lawyer who's in a mediation, I make it clear I do not represent you or you, party A or party B. I am the information booth with legal knowledge, 40 years, actually 41 as it turns out now, of going to court, reading judges, and being able to tell people most likely what's going to happen at court. But you need a lawyer to bring the case to court. So there's self-represented litigants, but I always tell people, I can't advise, I give information. I tell them you should not try and be a lawyer if you're not a lawyer. So they'll need at least one lawyer to the equation to bring the case to court, to file the paperwork, as you've alluded to before, that your firm takes the mediated agreements, represents one party, processes it before the court. Both parties acknowledge to the court that they knew what they were doing, they did it freely and voluntarily, and they read and understood that agreement. Most judges won't take a marital settlement agreement without at least one, if not both parties, before the court. So yes, you still need a lawyer, but as Jane talked about in pricing, if you add all of that up and divide by 2, it's still far less. It would probably be the entry level fees for going to 2 lawyers before the process even started.
Exactly.
$5,000 to $7,500 would be the lean price for a lawyer times 2 is $15,000. If you can do your whole mediation with an expert in financial planning, as Jane does, myself in the legal perspective, and then your firm handling the nominal divorce for $15,000 or less, you've accomplished what you needed to do. You did it amicably, expeditiously, and economically, and then you didn't go on month to month, year to year, spending tens of thousands of dollars more.
And it's private, right? So even, super high profile cases, high money cases, people who don't want to go to family court and sit in the hallway and talk about their marital estate in a public courtroom, that is a perfect opportunity for folks to take advantage of mediation.
And so now that we've got everybody so excited about these options and how much money and time and emotional turmoil it can save them, how do they get a hold of you, Kerry and Jane? How can they run to your office to try to work things out amicably? Where can they find you?
We work out of an office in East Greenwich, out of Kerry's law office. You can look us up on collaborativedivorcestrategies.com. My email is jmcauliffecds@gmail.com. You can also find all of our contact information for both of us on our website.
The law office is 401-398-8388. And the email is, of course, going through Collaborative Divorce Strategy.
Yep. So either way, they can call Kerry's law office or come to us through Collaborative Divorce Strategies. And we would be happy to do complimentary consultations just to see if we're a fit for them. And we take it from there.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. Thank you for helping to educate us in the community about this. And we look forward to seeing everybody else again on the next installment of It Takes a Village. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.